I just popped our shot up on Live U5. Should just be like inside of a boat. Mic check, mic check, mic check, 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 check.
All right, guys, we are getting ready. It looks like they are testing some video and audio right now. I'm just going to mute their screen. And the press conference should be getting going here in just a minute. At least we know we're on the feed. We're just watching a bunch of feet at the moment on a boat, but that's okay. At least we know we're on the feed. So I wanted to start this a little early because we know that we're going to get the press conference started here in just a few minutes. I wanted to jump on early, not only in the event that they start early, which typically they start later, but I wanted to also go through the news that was announced today regarding Aiden being charged as an adult, which I think we all are so excited about. Sorry, I forgot to kind of do the countdown in the intro. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, where we talk all things true crime. For those of you who joined me in the live yesterday, I know I look the exact same, but that's what happens when you're pregnant. You find something that fits and you wear it multiple days in a row. If you guys are brand new stopping by for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can stay notified of updates on this case and live streams as they get posted. As I mentioned, we are going to be waiting on the press conference to start here. We have it going on a couple different channels. This is the first one that clicked in. Obviously, we're not watching people on a boat. So the press conference will be taking over the feed in just a few minutes here. And then we will get started. I see there's some comments on my mic, so let me just change some stuff here really quick. Okay, hopefully that is a little bit better. Let me know. Throw a 1 if you can hear me better now, or throw a 2 if you can't hear me at all. Okay, so let me just see here. I've got a couple live streams going. I can also share this other one, I guess. Let me just do that. Actually, here, I'll unshare this screen for now, and let me share this other one. There we go. Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad you guys could hear me. So while we're waiting for the press conference to get started, let's just go over some of the newest updates that came out earlier today. And so, as I'm sure most of you have already heard, there is good news, and Aiden Fucci, the teen who is accused of killing 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey earlier this month in that brutal stabbing, will be tried as an adult on first-degree murder charges, and that is now effective in the court records. And I think we all kind of knew that this was happening because based on some of the testimony and the statements from the investigators early on, at least it was my inclination that this was always going to be a case in which he was tried as an adult just because of the severity of the crime, the evidence. And so personally, I'm not very surprised by this. Let me know in the chat if you guys are surprised by this. And I think it's interesting, too, that we now know he has a public defender. And so it'll be interesting to see if he now changes that and if the parents do hire private counsel, because these are going to be first-degree murder charges now. And apparently the evidence is quite heavily stacked against him. So I would imagine they are quite confident that they will get that guilty verdict. But let me know what you guys think in the chat below. And we will just keep waiting for them to get this started. I'm looking at the other boat feed right now, which is still going. So they will get started here in just a minute. I'm on Newsjacks 4. That's what we're on. They just haven't started it yet. We aren't entirely sure if that was a black eye or not. Some people were saying it was scarring from acne. Some people were saying it was the shadows. So we are unsure. Oh, I know. That's going to have to be an entirely new live because there is a lot to talk about with that. So I'm just going to keep the screen on as we wait for them to begin. And hopefully they will start right at the top of the hour. So it's interesting you say that, Kevin. I know there's a lot of speculation as to if more people were involved or if it was a setup and how did they lure her out. I'm hopeful that maybe we will get some answers with that today. I don't know how true this is, but I will say there was talk earlier in our group chat that the reason they had pushed this conference out is because schools don't get out until 2:45 and because they are going to be sharing so much information and it is such a publicly known case. They wanted to make sure that they did it during an hour in which they were able to capture everybody because allegedly they will be releasing a lot of information or announcing a lot of information, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. You know, let me look. Now, I believe, let me see if there was anything here in the article. I don't believe there has been anything stated regarding that, so maybe they'll speak on that as well. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions, not only of should he have been tried as an adult or should he be, but also if the death penalty will be on the table or not. And people are very divided. Some of you in the chat are saying he does need the death penalty. Some are saying that it's, 18 and older for death penalty. Let me just check over here on a couple of other live streams that we have going to make sure. I want to ensure that we don't miss anything. I've got all of the different channels set up, so we will be good to go. All right, guys, I'm going to just pull this up on the full screen as we wait. I saw one of these live streams that I have pulled up, and it quickly just went to a photo of the podium. So I would imagine it's going to be starting pretty soon. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to unshare and then reshare that screen. There we go. Please throw a 1 in the chat if you can hear everything okay. They haven't obviously started talking yet, but I just want to make sure that you're hearing everything when they do start talking. Oh, good. Great. I'm glad. Okay. And then once they start talking, I'm going to make this full screen because You obviously don't need to see all my facial reactions that I will probably be having as they speak. And then we'll do a discussion after they conclude and share thoughts and feedback. I don't think you want to see my reactions because I'm usually yelling at the screen.
I think the other way, or I guess you can turn that.
I'm doing well. Thank you, Tiffany. Hope you guys are all doing well too. Hoping we get some answers and some positive news today. We already got the craziness of the Lori Vallow being deemed incompetent to stand trial. So I'm hoping now we have a swing in the opposite direction and we get some good news. I did. I blocked whoever that account was, so they're no longer on here. We'll keep it split screen for now, and then when they start talking, I'll make it big screen because you'll get plenty of my reactions and commentary when we're done here. It will be interesting to see if they do announce if there's any more information, if other people were involved, possible motive, if there's been a confession of any sorts, if he's pleading guilty, not guilty now that he is the public defender. I'm hopeful that they'll shine a lot of light. And I'm hopeful that they'll kind of address all of the rumors and speculation going. There's been questions of if SA occurred, if multiple people were involved. Hopefully they'll set everything straight as well and kind of say in black and white, you know, here's what's true, here's what's not. I know they put that early statement out doing the same thing. So I'm hopeful that they will do that as well. Here we go. I'm going to mute my mic, guys.
Give a second to make sure that anybody who's not here yet would like to come on that.
Start like right at 4.
Yeah, we start right at 4. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. If we can sync up our watches here, I've got about 2 minutes till.
Okay.
When I did the that also involves shooting, where
Crystal, I didn't see which question you had asked, so please ask it again. I'll try to capture it.
that was when I realized, okay, if I can.
The volume doesn't go up anymore. It's higher. It's as high as it goes. So hopefully they start speaking clearly into the mic when they do talk. I know he was just doing a quick little announcement saying they are going to start promptly at 4.
So y'all ready? Y'all good? Okay. Welcome, everyone, to St. Johns County, to the courthouse. I'm R.J. Larissa, the elected state attorney for the 7th Judicial Circuit. Today, the St. Johns County Grand Jury convened and issued an indictment against Aiden Fucci for first-degree murder involving our victim, Tristyn Bailey. Once the grand jury had done the indictment, we did a transfer order, which I believe some of the folks in the media had already gotten a hold of, transferring the case from juvenile court to adult court. The indictment is the triggering document which signals and executes the move into the adult court system. So Aiden Fucci will be tried as an adult. in St. Johns County for first-degree murder. Now, Aiden was initially charged with second-degree murder. The indictment is for first-degree premeditated murder. Now, some folks have asked us why, or wanted to know why we would charge premeditated murder, and also why we would choose to seek adult sanctions on Aiden, who is a 14-year-old boy. Well, we're going to talk about both of those together to give you an idea of why the decision was made to charge him as an adult, and why we believe first-degree premeditated murder is the appropriate charge. I think both of those intertwine and will explain why we did what we did. First off, I want to tell you, it brings me no pleasure to be charging a 14-year-old as an adult with first-degree murder. But I can tell you also that the executive team and I reviewed all the facts, all the circumstances, the applicable law, and it was not a difficult decision to make that he should be charged as an adult. It's a sad decision in a sad state of affairs, but it was clear to us after we looked at what happened that it was not only appropriate to charge the defendant as an adult, but it was really the only choice that we could make. Now, you've heard that our victim, Tristyn, was stabbed. And I believe Sheriff Hardwick, who I'd like to say wishes he could be here today. Unfortunately, he couldn't be, but we'll have Director Skip Cole will speak for the Sheriff's Office. But to say that it was horrific could arguably be made as an understatement. The medical examiner completed an autopsy on our victim and identified confidently that there were 114 stab wounds. 114. At least 49 of those stab wounds were to the hands, arms, and the head, and were defensive in nature. The bottom line is that premeditation could be inferred, certainly, from just the sheer number of stab wounds that Tristyn Bailey had to suffer. Every time that arm went back and every time that arm went down, that was premeditation. And it happened, if you times 114 by 2, that's 228. But it's not just the fact that she was stabbed 14 times, or 114 times. It's also information that we were able to glean from witnesses. The defendant made statements to several people that he intended to kill someone. He didn't say who that was, but he indicated to witnesses that he was going to kill someone by taking them in the woods and stabbing them, which are certainly the facts of this case. The defendant had a knife that he carried with him. A knife was found in the pond, very close in proximity to our victim's body. That knife had a tip that was broken off. That tip was located by the medical examiner in the scalp of our victim. The statements that the defendant made to his friends made it clear that he was considering a homicide. And I got to tell you this, it's disturbing and concerning that those statements were not, let's say, adequately or appropriately, or not taken seriously by the folks that heard them. I'm not saying that this could have been avoided, but I'm saying that it was never reported beforehand. Now, as we move forward in this case, and we continue to develop the case, we will continue to develop more evidence. Not only do we have the knife, which was identified by witnesses as they say it's his knife. It's consistent, as the medical examiner says, with the wounds that were found on Tristyn's body. And it's also the description and the hilt and the wounds themselves match up per the medical examiner. Not only that, we also have DNA evidence that we have developed regarding this case. There is the defendant's DNA on the body of the victim. And there is the victim's DNA on the knife blade, on shoes that belong to the defendant that were found in his bedroom, on a t-shirt that was found in the defendant's bedroom. And there's additional items that we are looking at now that have been sent to the FDLE lab for confirmation of blood and DNA analysis. I just want to say that I hope parents will learn something from this vicious and brutal murder. And that is that you need to know what your kids are doing and what they're saying. Because while we might not be able to stop these brutal and vicious murders from happening, we ought to at least try. And sometimes parents might be reluctant to dig into what their kids are doing. For those of you who have kids, you know that when you start wondering and asking and investigating what they're doing, you have a battle on your hands. But it's a battle worth fighting. So I hope that parents will realize that teenagers are capable of things we have never imagined they could be. And this case is an example of that. What I'd like to do now is invite Director Skip Cole, the Director of Criminal Investigations for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, to say a few words.
It's difficult to hear all that. Okay, my name's Howard Cole. I'm the Director of the Criminal Investigations Division. I'm here today representing Sheriff Hardwick and all the men and women of the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. To begin, we fully support the grand jury indictment, which we all know represents only the first step in this very long and difficult process. We remain confident in the strength and thoroughness of our investigation, and we will be fully prepared to present all the facts and evidence to a jury at the appropriate time. We'd also like to thank State Attorney R.J. Larizza and his team for their partnership during this case. From day one, our teams worked side by side, furthering the investigation and preparing this case for grand jury. Even though this case is now being transitioned to the State Attorney's Office, our detectives will continue to investigate all leads and evidence to the fullest. In conclusion, we extend our continued thoughts and prayers to the Bailey family. We want the Bailey family to know that they are not alone, and we will stand with them through this entire process until justice and accountability is served. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite up Matt Walsh, who was the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Jacksonville region of Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. I'm FDLE Jacksonville Assistant Special Agent in charge, Matt Walsh. When a child goes missing or is in danger, time is critical. These are the most urgent cases in law enforcement, and we do everything we can to bring that child home safely. But sometimes, as heart-wrenching as it is, and despite our very best efforts, it isn't always possible. In these cases, we search for answers. Answers for the family and for the community. I'm so appreciative of our FDLE team and our law enforcement partners at St. John Sheriff's Office and here at the State Attorney's Office, Mr. Larizza's office, who dedicate themselves to this case and other cases around this community. Our forensic section had a very big role in this case. They worked tirelessly around the clock overnight to develop the DNA evidence Mr. Larizza has spoken about. Our agents have assisted in investigative support as much as we can, as much as needed by the St. John Sheriff's Office. And we continue that support to you in the Sheriff's Office. Our Missing Endangered Persons Information Clearinghouse, MEPIC, moved quickly to both issue a missing child alert for Tristyn and has been invaluable in providing analytical assistance in this investigation. And FDLE will continue to offer any support we can in this investigation and to our community in working through this tragedy. Thank you.
I'd like to also acknowledge the sheriff's office, and there were a bunch of folks involved in this investigation, but the case agent was Corporal Hannon, Kurt Hannon, and he's done an excellent job running the investigation and working with our team and the sheriff's office. Cases like this, look, there was video surveillance, there was DNA collected almost immediately. The deputy who responded at the scene to begin with, because remember, this started as a missing persons. Nobody knew what we really had for a while, but if it weren't for that deputy that responded, it could have been a lot longer before we actually were able to figure out exactly what we were dealing with here. And FDLE, folks, you know, testing DNA takes time. I mean, usually it could take months to get the DNA results back. But FDLE stepped up and said, we will process this evidence immediately for you. And I can't thank Matt and his crew enough, the folks at the lab, for doing that. I mean, it truly made a difference in how quickly we could get this investigation over. Also, I'd like to say, and this is really involving the Bailey family. I've met with them twice. They are wonderful, courageous, strong people. And I'll tell you, they're going to need all the courage and strength they can as we go through this process. You know, the juvenile system is not equipped for cases like this. The juvenile system, the maximum time that the defendant could spend in the juvenile system would be 21 till he's 21, and he'll be 15 this year. That is not adequate. That is not adequate or appropriate for what happened here. Additionally, the family has been receiving or has been made aware of comments on social media and threats. I want to tell y'all something. Law enforcement and the state attorney's office will be investigating any and all threats on social media for possible criminal charges. And I want folks to know the family needs your help. They need your support. If you can't give them that, then you should keep your mouth shut. And you shouldn't be using social media as a platform to exploit this terrible and horrific crime that we are now prosecuting. We should all be sad about what happened, and we should all be prepared to stand up and stand with the Bailey family as we work our way through this process. Because I'm telling you, folks, the criminal justice process is not friendly to victims and their families. It is a difficult process to go through, and the Bailey family is going to be going through it for years. So please keep that in mind. You folks out there who want to support the Bailey family, please do. Those of you who don't, be careful. Be careful about what you say and do. Now, I'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has some. Yes, sir.
Mr. Larissa, I can tell with just your demeanor, having seen you speak on cases before, have you ever dealt with anything like this? Has your team ever dealt with anything like this?
Well, certainly not the number of stab wounds. And I mean, it's a 14-year-old that is the defendant and a 13-year-old girl who's the victim. I mean, I'd have to say no. I have not before today. Yes, ma'am.
Did the surveillance video show any signs of struggle between the two?
We don't, well, there's a lot of surveillance video. There's surveillance video from when Tristyn and Fucci leave, where they were together and walk down the road. There's several different places. We all know folks have ring videos and other types of videos now, and that there was no signs of any struggle based on those videos. We certainly don't know. We can't see what happened at that point, but we know the result. So there certainly was a struggle. There were defensive wounds on this poor young lady, and she was fighting for her life. And it's just sad that we even have to talk about that. Yes, ma'am.
Any indication at this point in your investigation of whether Mr. Fucci may have been suffering from mental health conditions or was seeing a counselor for those kinds of issues?
No.
Do you
Yes.
know? Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
The police report that was just released said that Fucci struck Tristyn. Did he admit to stabbing her?
We're not going to talk about any confessions. If there were any, what I can tell you is that there are no statements that I'm aware of made by the defendant that where he confesses to the crime. Okay?
You know what led up to them getting together that night? Was he texting her, asking to hang out? Were they having any arguments at all?
These kids, you know, they're teenagers and they have their groups and they hang out. And so it was started out as just a few kids getting together and hanging out, but it didn't end that way. Yes, sir.
Sir, was this a thrill kill? Was it sexual in nature? I mean, there's so many theories out there. Has your office and have detectives with St. Johns County and FDLE found a motive here?
We're still working and investigating this case, and those details I'm not prepared to discuss at this time. Yes,
On the
ma'am.
heels of that, any signs of evidence of sexual assault in the autopsy?
We're not going to discuss details of that at this time either. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of pressure did you feel from the community to charge him as an adult? I know you guys got a lot of calls and emails. How many did you get?
I don't know. And no, I didn't feel any pressure at all. This is my job to make these decisions along with the executive team. And while we're sad and we certainly take no pleasure in it, this is our duty. And we looked at the facts, we looked at the law, and I got to tell you, and the circumstances of the offense, there was no other alternative. The juvenile system is geared for kids maybe with drug issues or that commit nonviolent crime. When you get kids that get to this level of violence, the time and the accountability is not there, and the programs are it's just not there. The adult system is where this case belongs. Yes, ma'am.
Was she tied up or restrained in any way?
We don't have evidence of any of that. The investigation is ongoing, but no, we have no evidence of that. Yes, sir.
What about the other teens? You obviously showed your disdain for their actions for having known about these homicidal statements that he made. Could they face any charges, any punishment, any kind of accountability here?
Well, first off, I don't consider it disdain. Disappointment that they didn't talk to somebody. But of course, they're teenagers, and that may be something that you could understand. I mean, I was a teenager once. I can still remember parts of that. But what I will say is, no, at this point, there's no evidence that we're aware of that would indicate that any of the kids that were involved, as far as friends who had testimony or evidence, had anything to do with the homicide or in any way have any criminal responsibility. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fucci being held, being transferred already to an adult facility. Can you tell us what facility that is, and will he be held at that same facility pending trial?
I can't. That's a decision for the sheriff's office, and I think Sheriff Hardwick, along with the directors, they will make that decision about where he will not stay in Volusia County. I'm fairly certain of that.
Has he already been transferred as we speak?
I don't think so. I think we'll try to get some information to you about a first appearance. I think we will have that for you, maybe even as early as this afternoon, so that if you would like to try and attend or zoom into it, that you could do that. Yes, ma'am.
So will he not be coming to St. Johns County? He might go somewhere else?
At this point, that's still being determined. What we'll do is we'll find out where he's going to be and when, and we'll let you know. We'll notify you. Okay? Yes, sir.
And will he be kept, and this might be for Director Cole, will he be kept by himself because of the notoriety and the horrificness of this case?
Juveniles are kept separately, typically from adults, even in adult county and state facilities, so that they have protocols for that. And if he's held in the St. Johns County Jail, they have their protocols. If he's held in another facility, not run by the sheriff's office, they'll have their protocols, but he will be separated. Yes, ma'am.
Has Fucci showed any remorse?
There's video that I think y'all have access to, you've seen. I think that answers that question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that life in prison without the possibility of parole is appropriate sentence for this?
Well, first off, let me say I think it would be, but that's not the case for the defendant. He could receive a life sentence. He could receive less because of the Graham Miller decisions from the United States Supreme Court saying that it would be cruel and unusual punishment to have a minor sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The irony there is, what about what happened to Tristyn? Would you consider that cruel? I certainly would. But the bottom line is that he will be eligible for, if he got a life sentence, that's the first if, he would be eligible for a review at 25 years. And at that point, a judge could decide either to reduce his sentence, leave it the same, or release him. But he will get the benefit of a generous consideration or accommodation simply because he was not 18 years old at the time. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any indication that he was under the influence at the time of the crime?
Not, I don't believe so. Yes, ma'am.
Will there be another first appearance? If so, when?
There will be a first appearance. Not sure when, probably tomorrow, but what I said is we will get you that information. I'll ask Mr. Shorstein, our PIO, to make sure all of you are notified so that if you want to be there or at least zoom in, that you can. Okay? Yes, sir.
Mr. Larissa, if this case were to go to trial, could it be tried here, in your opinion, here in St. Johns County?
Well, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. The attempt is always made to try it in the jurisdiction where the crime occurred. And the judge makes the ultimate determination about whether or not to transfer venue. The defense may ask for a change of venue, but typically in my experience, the judge will attempt to do it in the jurisdiction where it occurred first. And if that doesn't work, then pick another jurisdiction. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you said that these were kids hanging out. Do we have any indication that they were linked romantically in some way, before that night or as of that night?
We're continuing the investigation, not prepared to really talk about that today. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if Tristyn was his target? We heard a rumor that he was trying to lure other girls into the woods that night. Do we know if she was specifically who he intended that night?
We have no information that he had specifically targeted her. The information we have is that he had told friends that he was going to kill someone and that it was imminent within the next 30 days or within the month. And he talked about that to some of his friends several times, but there was never a specific individual identified. And at this point in time, the sad reality is this could have been simply a case of the wrong place at the wrong time.
So did he
Yes, ma'am.
try and bring other girls out that night?
We have no information in that regard. No, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Does he have a criminal history? We can't see his juvenile records. Can you tell us about his past?
Well, juvenile records are confidential, but no, he didn't.
What about at school? Did he have any misbehaviors at school, getting in fights with kids at school?
I'm not prepared to discuss that at this time. Jessica?
The weapon that was found, was it like a pocket knife that you would carry around on a regular basis?
It was your typical folding buck knife. Buck knife. Buck knife. Yes, ma'am. Buck knife.
Like for hunting?
Well, some people use them for hunting. They have multiple uses, I would suspect.
Was his family aware that he carried around that knife?
Can't answer that question for you. Don't know. Folks?
Are they cooperating with you, his parents?
We have gotten a lot of witnesses that are cooperating, and that's about as far as I'm prepared to say at this time. Okay? Folks, I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate your patience. Again, I want to thank FDLE and the Sheriff's Office, and thank you for taking the time to spend a little time with us here today. Thank you. All right.
Thank you for answering our question.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, I'm going to leave the screen up just as we start talking in case anybody comes back for any final comments. But oh my God. I'm blown away, first of all, that they shared as much information as they did. Oh, it looks like they are done. Okay. I'm blown away that they shared as much information as they did and so many details. And I put together my thoughts and I'll recap everything with you guys right now as we go through it. because a lot of what he was and was not sharing definitely sparked more questions in my mind and possible answers. So I would love to get your feedback as well. So first and foremost, let's start with the fact that he was charged with premeditated first-degree murder. That was always a question from the beginning. Was this a crime of passion? Was this premeditated? Did he lure her out? And we now know that it was premeditated. The reason why it is classified as premeditated is because he made statements to several people that he planned to kill someone within the next 30 days by taking them into the woods and stabbing them. So he already had this crime planned out. In my personal opinion, I don't think the target mattered. I really don't. I think he had in his mind, he knew he wanted to execute this horrific crime. And then it was a moment of opportunity when they were in the woods and Tristyn was there, and it unfolded the way it did, which is just makes this, in my opinion at least, all the more tragic, because it could have been anybody. It could have, imagine if it was somebody who happened to be a tiny bit stronger, got a right hook in right at the right moment. I mean, it breaks your heart. The autopsy revealed 114 stab wounds, many across her hands, arms, and head, which were consistent with defensive wounds, which means she put up a hell of a fight. She fought hard. She tried to get him off of her. And unfortunately, he was able to overpower her in that sense. I thought it was also very interesting that he says, when you describe this crime as horrific, that is an understatement, and that it is so much more brutal than describing it as a horrific crime, which it truly is. And with that, he also went on to say that the knife was found in the pond, which I also think we all suspected when they were diving and searching for so many days for that knife, and that the tip was broken off, and that the tip was located in Tristyn's scalp, and the medical examiner found it. Now, that's something that immediately made me think that he was going, and like we just heard, that's what, 228 times up and down motion and premeditation. He was going until it literally broke off in her head, which to me at least, and tell me what you think, but that to me means that's the only reason he stopped. It was, hopefully it was overkill, and I hope that she was taken quickly and she didn't have to suffer extremely long. But in my opinion, it sounds like it was overkill and that he just kept going. And then the only reason he stopped is because the tip broke off in her scalp. And then he ditched the knife and threw it in the pond. And that is honestly just disgusting and absolutely horrific. It's literally giving me the chills. He said that the case is transitioning to the state attorney office, and that the reason that they are trying him as an adult, not only because they believe it's first-degree murder charges that it warrants, but because in the juvenile system, he would only be held until he's 21. He's about to turn 15, so he would only serve 6 years for this crime if he were tried as a juvenile. So thank God they're trying him as an adult, because he deserves way longer than 6 years, and I'm sure we can all agree on that, regardless how developed you are mentally, and if you're still a child. No, this is a crime that you calculated, you planned out, you executed, heartlessly executed until your weapon quite literally broke off. You deserve to be charged as an adult, in my opinion. I heard in one of the questions, and it was muffled, and so I'm going to have to rewind and rewatch, but one of the questions was that they had heard he admitted to striking her but not stabbing her. And they couldn't confirm or deny that, but he did say that there has been no confession from him as to the actual crime and cause of death itself. So we don't know if he did admit to hitting her or anything. That was just speculation. I have it in my notes because I want to go back and listen to that. But what I thought was very interesting is he said what started out as a few kids getting together ended in this horrible crime. And I don't want to read too far into it, but when he said that, it made me immediately think it wasn't just the two of them who went for a walk and went into this wooded area. And if you watched my last video where we actually outlined the path that they walked, the aerial footage of where this horrific crime took place, we talked about how in many high schools and middle schools, and I know in my school that there was that common meetup place where people would go and hang out. And so that got me thinking, if it started out with a few kids getting together, were they walking the path together because they live close to each other and they were meeting up with friends? Then when all of the friends dispersed and it was just the two of them, did he seize his attack on her and see it as a means of opportunity? And I'm hoping we'll start to get more information, because I know they're going to release more details as it goes. But that's what made me think that right away. And he could have certainly said, meant that it was just two of them getting together in the woods and it ended this way. But for some reason that struck out to me. And I think it also could explain why she willingly went and met up with him, and if it was just the two of them meeting up with other friends. But I absolutely could be wrong, and it could have just been the two of them the entire time. They said they are working on getting a motive, and he won't discuss further. And one of the reporters also asked if there was any evidence of this being a sexually driven crime, or if the medical examiner found any evidence of SA. And we have to abbreviate that on here because YouTube doesn't like it when we say it. And he said he won't discuss that. There's been a lot of comments out there from people who are close to the family or not close to the family. Truthfully, at this point, it's hard to say who is and isn't, because there's so much conversation. And there is a lot of conversation that the family wants it known that there was no SA that took place. And I am very hopeful that that is true. However, when he said he won't discuss that, it makes me pause and question, because I would imagine that the response to that would be, no, we did not find any trace evidence of that. We did not find any forensic evidence of that, DNA evidence. And it's just, oh God, it just makes this so much worse, if that's even possible. And then he said he's hoping that as early as this afternoon, he will have an announcement as far as when the date will be of the first appearance, which he is also believing may be as early as tomorrow. And in that first appearance, we probably will hear him enter a plea. And I just kind of want to go back a little bit to the motive. And even though they're working out the motive, to me, it seems like it was just, again, no particular target in mind. He had this crime planned out in his head. He knew what he was going to do, and he executed it. And we know that because he told several of his friends what he was planning to do. And he almost gave himself this really odd timeline of 30 days to get this done. And so I just want to, for me, it's a big learning. And I just want to encourage everybody watching. And I know he said this in the conference too. If you have kids, it is not only so important to monitor what they're doing, who they're talking to, what they're saying. And I'm not saying you need to chip your child or anything, but it's so important for this very reason. And also to encourage your existing children who are middle school, teenagers, every age, to be quite honest, that if they hear disturbing things like this, from whether it's from their best friend in the whole world, that they need to come forward and bring it to an adult's attention, and they need to share it with somebody and with the appropriate parties. Because if that had been done, if these people who had heard him describing this, whether they thought it was a joke or not, had they taken appropriate measures and shared that information, it quite possibly could have saved Tristyn's life. And it quite could possibly have saved his life from spending a life or close to a life sentence in prison. It's just such a glaring reminder that we need to speak up when something is off and when we hear something that is not right. And then let me see. We know he said that the murder weapon was a buck knife, which is a folding knife. I'm going to pull up here really quick just so you guys can have a visual of what that is. And it is a very standard knife that people carry. It's just an easy, quick little fold switchblade. I guess I could just share my screen here really quick. I literally just threw it into Google so you could see what it is. There you go. So let me go full screen. So you can see it's just a folding blade. You put it in your pocket, and they were saying that the tip is what broke off, which is, again, just absolutely horrific. And it sounded by the conference that they don't believe others were involved and that they don't have any evidence indicating that others were involved. And truthfully, I don't believe others were involved at this point only because we know he had made this vocal outcry of what he was going to do ahead of time. And so it didn't seem like it was a crime of opportunity with other friends. Maybe if he had shared it with other friends and they're like, oh yeah, let me get in on that whenever you do it. But I feel like that would be a little bit of a far stretch, but I could be wrong. But I did think it was interesting that to figure out kind of why they went together, which even though that hasn't officially been released, he did say that little statement that I'm reading into probably, but what started as a few kids getting together. I don't know that he meant just the two of them. I'm guessing maybe it was a hangout and that's why she went with him. Or maybe I'm personally just trying to make sense of all of this and rationalize why this beautiful girl would go with this creepy guy at 1 a.m. unless there was a bigger reason behind it. And maybe that's stupid and naive, but I think I'm just trying to make sense of it in my own mind. So what I will do, a lot of you guys are asking for me to save this stream. I will save it and I will keep it up. I'll answer a couple questions right now in the chat before we wrap up here. And let me know what you guys think too. I want to, again, I know we threw those blue hearts up for her family. Let's just continue. And I want to actually circle back to that really quick. Let's keep the family in mind here. And he mentioned a lot of death threats that are going on out there and a lot of people spreading misinformation and trying to hurt the family, saying Tristyn deserved this or she had it coming. And I'm glad that they're going to be pursuing charges against a lot of this threatening behavior. And not to get into a lot of detail, a lot of you guys know who are in my Discord, there's been a couple of people now who have DM'd me with similar threats. And I believe it's troll accounts who are just like pro Aiden, free Aiden, and saying, they're going to blow my head off and all this stuff. And I have forwarded those as everybody should if they are receiving any. But I'm glad to hear that they are taking that so seriously because this family has been put through enough turmoil that these trolls just spreading hate and misinformation and trying to make light of what Aiden did is just truly disgusting. And so the sooner they can be shut down, the better, in my opinion. It's disgusting. Yeah, I think one of the troll accounts who had reached out to me, he reached out to me again this morning, actually, with like a video, and it was disgusting. I think there's like a couple like known high profile troll accounts who are like doing this because they feel like they're getting their 15 minutes. It's sick. Anyways, let me see. Please, somebody say that they saw comments of what his friends said. I'm not sure I understand, Brittany. Yes, please report all of those troll accounts. All right, guys, if you have more questions, leave them in the comment section below. I will save this video and keep it up as we hear more and we get updates. And if he does have his first appearance tomorrow, I'll keep you guys updated. The second we learn more and the second new information is found out, make sure that you're subscribed if you're not, so that you get notified as soon as we go live with those updates or I post them. Please stay safe, watch your kids, educate your kids, and please say an extra prayer tonight for the Bailey family because I can't imagine the grief that they must be feeling right now. All right, guys, until the next case, stay safe. Bye.